clear in your mind that that's the best way to go around. Many people ask me that why the IAS? I tell them, why you bother? For a civil servant, transfer is like death. It is inevitable. Why should you worry about something which is inevitable? And in any case, sir, I believe in Hindu philosophy. I'll be reborn. You're not throwing me out of service. You post me somewhere else. I'll commit the same crime there.
No one can say no to Prime Minister. You know, Prime Minister is Modi ji. And I heard that you even told no to him.
No,
in your first. So today, for our podcast series, we have someone who has spent entire career in the civil service. Who's, whatever we read about civil service, the backbone of administration, backbone of government of India. In fact, we have Anil Swarup sir, who has spent years in civil service, who has met different prime ministers, who has worked in cabinet secretariat, and in fact, an ethical dilemma which many face in civil service, he has faced it, successfully resolved it, and in fact, he has also written a book on this ethical dilemmas of a civil servant. He's an author, he has authored so many books on civil service. So today we are very fortunate to have in Officers IAS Academy Anil Swarup sir. He is someone after the Supreme Court and others, the so-called cold scam. Then he was brought in later and he made it so transparently until now, almost 10 years now, not even a single question asked on that coal allocation. So he was heading that. So he was also in cabinet secretariat as additional secretary. So today let us interact with him and know anything and everything about civil service. Thank you so much, sir, for coming and gracing and sharing the knowledge which you are gaining over the years. Because all these civil service aspirants want to know that.
Thank you very much. What a pleasure it is to be amidst you all. I was looking forward to interacting with you all because thanks to COVID, not much travel was involved. But post-COVID, I've been traveling a lot and I do interact with people like you. First of all, compliments to all of you for having decided to become a civil servant because that's very important. You have to be absolutely clear in your mind that you think that civil service is the job that you want. Until you have that desire burning in you, becoming a civil servant is becoming increasingly difficult. I still have nightmares of not qualifying for the civil service now. Here. So it's tough, very, very tough. I joined the civil service or the IAS because my father wanted me to become an IAS officer. I distinctly remember I was around 10 years of age when I saw a piece of paper in which my dad had actually written down how will I study, what subjects I will take, BA, MA, and then how will I appear for the civil service. At that point in time, it didn't make any sense to me. But gradually, I internalized what my dad wanted and made it into my own dream and worked towards it very religiously. It requires a different sort of an approach, which I'll share with you as we go along. But at the end of it, when I completed 38 years as a civil servant, 1 year in the Indian Police Service and 27 years in the Indian Administrative Service, I have written in the last chapter of my first book, not just a civil servant, that if I were to be born again, I'd like to be an IAS officer all over. I enjoyed every moment of my existence as a civil servant, and hence I want to become an IAS officer all over. And what is even better, that I'm thoroughly enjoying my post-retired career. And it's because of what little I could do as an IAS officer. So I was very clear in my mind that I wanted to become an IAS officer. And I'm hoping that each one of you is very clear in your mind that that's the best way to go around. Many people ask me that why the IAS? I tell them that there is, in my understanding, there's no service in the world where you can influence the futures, the lives of millions of people. You mentioned about this RSBY, Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana. It was influencing 3.5 crore families. Huge number. I don't think any Ambani or anybody would be influencing so many lives as one could in a particular position. And you can derive enormous amount of satisfaction between that. In my books that I mentioned here, I have narrated a number of incidents where I felt so kicked and thrilled by whatever I did that I call them my Bharat Ratnas. I call them my Bharat Ratna moment. And before I conclude, I'd like to narrate one such incident for you to understand what this service has to offer. There are many such incidents in my book, but this one I'll mention just to drive home this point of why the IAS. I had started the scheme RSBY to begin with. There were many problems that I faced. But gradually that scheme came to be recognized world over as one of the finest schemes in the world. And it was, everyone was talking about it. The World Bank, the ILO, the UNDP thought it was one of the finest schemes in the world. World Bank, in fact, wanted me to do this scheme, replicate the schemes in 15 countries of the world. And they had offered me $1,000 a day for it. I preferred to stay back because I was thoroughly enjoying my stint here as an IAS officer. I didn't want to quit the country and go somewhere else and do something else. Yes, money is important, let me tell you very clearly. It is not to say money is not important, but there are many, many more important things beyond money as well. So I stayed back. So around that time, Mr. Obama had taken over as president. He was elected as president of the US. So one of his advisors rang me. He said, Mr. Swarup, can you come over to Washington and make a presentation on your health insurance? So I told him, hey, our health insurance scheme is totally different. The context is totally different. It is for the poorest of the poor. We don't have much to offer to you, but he insisted. So I used to go to Washington, to the World Bank for discussions. In one of those visits, I visited Brookings Institute, which houses the advisors to the President of the US. And I made a presentation on this health insurance scheme, RSBY. During the course of that presentation, there were representatives of the US government, the state government, because they also have a structure like we have. There were representatives of our own mission. Then there were also representatives of Gates Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, and many other foundations. After my presentation, we were having a cup of coffee. This gentleman from Gates Foundation walks up to me and asks me, Mr. Swarup, you are very passionate about the scheme. What does the government give you beyond your salary? It's a very interesting question. Many of you will become civil servants and some of you will become very passionate about what you're doing. Some of you will become indifferent. There are different ways to look at it. I was very passionate about whatever I did in my career. Even now I'm passionate about whatever I do. So I asked him a counter question. I asked him, Gates Foundation gives millions of dollars to poor country. What do you get out of it? He said, well, that's a job. But more than that, we derive a lot of satisfaction out of the help that we do to the poor. I told him, you answered your own question. Because the Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana is meant for the poorest of poor, many of whom would have been dead but for this scheme. So the good wishes of those that survived and their families come back to me somehow, anyhow. That's good enough a kick for me to see what he was doing. And then I narrated an incident to him to illustrate this concept of kick, the thrill that I was getting out of implementing this scheme. In this scheme, I used to visit these small hospitals that were abandoned. In one of the visits to the hospitals, I was talking to a beneficiary patient. I heard a very feeble voice from behind. There was a very old lady that was calling out, and she was calling out, Beta, son, come here. So I went there. She was so old and frail that she couldn't sit. She was just lying. And she was flashing that smart card. RSBY was a smart card based scheme. So I went down and asked her, the conversation was in Hindi. I asked her, I hope you're fine. Her response was, I'm fine, but I'm in a lot of pain. I'm in a lot of pain, but these hospital people have looked after me very well. Then I told her, you will be fine and you'll go home. She tells me, though, I have no home. I'm a beggar. I had a small hut. I fell in. My neighbor, who's also a beggar, saw your smart card. He brought me here to the hospital. Now they are all taking care of me. They don't ask me for money. I don't have money to pay them. So then I told her, no, you will not require to pay anything. You'll be fine. You'll go home. And this conversation carried on for a while. And she insisted that she won't go anywhere. And finally, she makes a statement. She says, now I've become so old, I'll go to the Almighty. So I told her, no, you'll go home. No, I'll go to the Almighty, but I'll tell one thing to the Almighty. Your scheme is very good. This was my Bharat. And there are many Bharat Ratna moments. So the civil service affords you the opportunity because people ask me, why the IAS? So I tell them, There's no other service in the world where you can survive if you are dishonest. You can thrive if you are honest. You can survive if you are inefficient. You can thrive if you're efficient. You can become Secretary Government of India if you're efficient. You can become Cabinet Secretary of India if you're inefficient. So anything can happen. So which service gives you the choice? So I think you've taken the right decision. Work towards it. Maybe as we discuss, I'll share a few thoughts on how to prepare for the civil service. Because many of you work very hard, but probably moving in the wrong direction. So if time permits, I'll talk about that later on. But as I said, I've thoroughly enjoyed every moment of an existence as an IAS officer. I'm even more enjoying now post-retirement. I go all over the place. I travel twice a week somewhere in the country, outside the country, talk to people like you. And that's the thrill and the kick that get out of talking to youngsters like you. Because talking to you all gives me a lot of energy to carry on as much as I can. Thank you very much for inviting me here.
Thank you, sir. Now, we're talking about $1,000 a day offer from India to Obama get that much influence as a civil servant. But the other side, I heard that when you were in service, your wife had to travel in second class, non-AC. Now, don't you think the service doesn't offer that much salary?
It does. It does offer reasonable amount of salary to live comfortable. Comfort level has to be decided by you. There are people who can't afford a railway ticket. They travel on foot. They travel on bicycle. They can't afford a ticket. So we were better than them. More than 90% people can't do that. We could do that. So it's a question of where you're looking at. Your needs, you have to define your own needs. If you want to live, like we got a first air conditioner after I had put in what, 21 years of service. Not before that. So it took me that long, not 21, I'm sorry, 16 years or so. 16 years I didn't have an air conditioner at all. But then if you get used to air conditioner, then you can't stand outside. But if you're not used to air conditioner, which 90% of India is not used to air conditioner, they're also surviving and thriving. So it's a question of how you mold yourself. There's no end to the comforts that you want in life. Like I can tell you one thing, but if you get used to a particular level of comfort, coming down becomes very difficult. So go gradually. Now maybe I have a air conditioner in every room of my house, but at that point in time I didn't have it, so be it.
So compared with that time when you were in service, now yes, the service conditions are much better. Salary is much higher now for the IAS officers. Now, those who aspire, because there are almost 20 services, IAS, IPS, IFS, can you tell, because you have put a lot of almost 30 years of service, something that aspirant should have in mind. This quality means I can become a very good IAS officer. IPS may be different criteria, but I want to know what criteria they should have in mind to become IAS as the first choice.
You know, if you have leadership qualities, because unlike other services, audit and account and things like that, you don't require as many leadership traits as you require in the IAS. Because in the IAS, you may yourself not be asked to do many things. You'll have a team. You have to work as a team. You have to get work out of the team. And that's where your leadership potential comes through. So if you want to become a leader, not in the political sense, but in the administrative sense, IAS is the job for you. It's not a desk job only. The beauty of the IAS is that you are in the field to begin with. Then when you come to the desk part, you use that experience in the field to formulate policies. That's the only service that provides you that opportunity. In other places, income tax or audit and accounts, you'll be sitting on a desk, doing most of your job. In the IAS, you have the pulse of the people, the pulse of the field, your feet on the ground, you've seen the soil yourself, and then when you come to a policy-making position, you bring to bear the experience that you had in the field, make policies. That's the advantage of being in the IAS.
Sir, during your career, you are from Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh is a happening place in every aspect. Have you ever faced some law and order problem? Can you narrate?
Oh, many law and order. With me, it was baptism by fire. That's the topic of the chapter in my book. I had just taken over a sub-divisional magistrate. Here you got sub-collector, I think, Tamil Nadu. And this is 1984. Mrs. Indira Gandhi was assassinated. None of you would have been born then. And all hell broke loose. People from the ruling party were actually indulging in arson and harassing people from a minority. So as sub-division magistrate, my job was to go around the town and see that everything was in order. And as I was doing that, I got some intelligence that a very prominent and very powerful MLA of the district was behind this arson, belonging to the ruling party. Now, this is one of the chapters in my book, Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, where I had this dilemma whether I should take action against that MLA. I had no evidence. I had intelligence. So it was not illegal for me not to take action. It was not illegal for me to take action. So law was not involved. That's where ethics comes in now. I had to take a call whether I should initiate action against it. After thinking for a while, I decided to take action. And I could take direct action. I prepared an NSA, National Security Act case against the MLA and sent it across to the district magistrate, the collector, who's authorized to take a decision on National Security Act. Now, this MLA got the wind of it that I had the courage to move a file against him. So he went to Lucknow state headquarters and spoke to someone. And I was summoned to Lucknow. I was very upset. I said, I have done the right thing, and they brought me to Lucknow. Anyway, I met a very senior officer. As I entered the room, he asked me, Anil, what have you done? So I told him this is what I've done. He agreed with me. And then he said, but it is in your own interest to withdraw the file. So that's how it will happen to you also. They will not say that you've done wrong. You say you're right, but in your own interest, withdraw the file. So I said, sir, I'm not a decision-making authority. The collector can say no to whatever. No, I think it's in your own interest. So I told him, no, sir, I have already sent the file. Let him take over. The meeting ended. I came back to my residence in where I was posted, and within 24 hours, I was transferred in. So that was back in my file. Now look at what happened 7 years down the line when I myself became a collector. And this Ram Janmabhoomi agitation was going on. My reputation had preceded me. People knew that this chap will not listen to anybody. If anybody does anything wrong in respect to his political affiliation, I will put him behind bars. So that helped me because all these surrounding districts were in curfew. I didn't have to impose curfew. Everything was going fine. But suddenly a murder happened. And the district president of the ruling party wanted to take out a funeral procession. That was recipe for disaster because it would have led to riots. So I spoke to him and I told him, why are you doing this? This is your own government. There will be law, not a problem. He said, no, we'll take out the funeral procession. So I put the district president of the ruling party behind the bars, arrested him. So I told my wife, last time I was transferred out for just moving a file, this time I could be suspended. In the evening, at around 10:30, the chief minister rang me up. He asked me, what have you done, DM Saab? I said, sir, this is the background. No, you'll have to be released. I said, sir, it's your own government. If I release him, he takes out a funeral procession, there will be riots and you'll get a bad name. Then he asked me, you tell me what should be done, but he has to be released. I told him, sir, why don't you speak to him? Tell him that it's his own government. There's no point in taking out this funeral procession. I don't know whether he agreed, disagreed, he banged the phone down. So I was convinced, next morning I'll be transferred out. Next morning, what happens, I get a call informing me that the gentleman who was insisting on taking out the funeral procession has agreed not to take out the funeral. So I released him immediately because I had nothing personal against him. Now, this is not the end of the story. 2 months down the line, the same chief minister who was annoyed with me promoted me as one of the finest collectors of the state. And that is when I understood Karmanne Vadikaraste Mafalechu Badatan. My mother used to tell me when I was a youngster. Because let me tell you this, a bit of a background. When I was a youngster, I was reasonably okay in studies. In sports and other things, I wanted to win a trophy or certificate. I never got a single cup trophy certificate till class 7. So I used to feel very upset. So my mother used to tell me, your time will come. And then she used to give these lines. Which didn't make any sense to me then. It was now that I was realizing that we have absolutely no control over results. You do your karma. I did my karma in Hardoi, I was transferred out. I did my karma here, arrested that guy, and I was awarded in the collector. So that's how it happens.
So how, you told the first incident as a sub-division magistrate, young blood, you did the right thing, but you were transferred. How officers should take the transfer, whether it is a
at that point in time, I was very upset. Very upset. Because I thought I did the right thing and I was transferred out. Very upset. Because I also evolved. I could not realize that there could be other compulsions that relate to my transfer. I only focused myself that I have been undone. Okay. Now, much later, in 2003, I had returned to UB after my stint in Delhi, and I was posted as Secretary of Horticulture. My minister was very corrupt. He was called 25%. He was 25% advance on all the projects, and very corrupt. And things were going downhill. So one day I get a written order from him asking me to suspend a deputy director. Just 2-line order, suspend this deputy director. And now the minister was authorized to suspend me. So it was not an illegal, but he had not given any reason. So I rang up the minister, I asked him, sir, you asked me to suspend it, what is the reason? No, he gave a very stupid reason. He tells me that officer has not come to meet me. I said, too stupid a reason for to, I didn't tell him that. But I told him, sir, I will ask him to meet you. He kept the phone up. Then I found out about the officer, what stupid is the officer, why hasn't he called on the minister? So I got to know that he's a very fine officer, honest officer. Called that officer to my office. I said, stupid fellow, why didn't you go and call on the minister? He's very annoyed, he wants me to suspend you. He said, sir, I met him on a number of occasions, but the manner in which he wants to meet me, I can't meet. Now this guy wanted some money, the minister. He said, sir, neither do I have the money nor I'll give him money. Now my dilemma was, here was an honest officer, an efficient officer, legally correct order to suspend. What do I do? So then, and this is I'm telling you, I tell it in the academy also, you must know your rules well. So I went through the rules and I discovered that if I disagreed with the minister, I could route the fight from the chief secretary, who is the top man in the state. So I spoke to the chief secretary, a very fine officer. So I explained to him, sir, here is an honest, efficient officer, my minister wants to suspend him. So he said, Anil, you send the file to me, we'll then see. So sometimes red tape is good. I send the file to you, you sat on the file. And here is an order issued by the minister, but the order not issued. Because it had to be signed by me. Now this minister kept asking me, what happened to that order? So I have told him, sir, the file is with the chief secretary. So after 2-3 times, the minister went and met the chief minister. And I don't know what happened between them, I was transferred out. Now, my understanding of transfer had undergone a change. So the chief secretary called me and he was very annoyed. He said, in order to protect that officer, see what has happened to you, got transferred. So look at my response. I told him, sir, why are you bothered? For a civil servant, transfer is like death. It is inevitable. Why should we worry about something which is inevitable? And in any case, sir, I believe in Hindu philosophy. I'll be reborn. You're not throwing me out of service. You will post me somewhere else. I'll commit the same crime there. So he started laughing. So that's how your perception about transfers change. My perception changed about transfers. So, as I keep telling youngsters like you, there is no such thing as objective reality. It is your own understanding that you define that reality. So, transfers are there, but how you look at it. And I also say that you should not try and get yourself transferred. Do what you think is right. And if you get transferred, so be it.
So, again, staying in line with the transfer. You are someone in 2013, Court Secretary, brought in the reforms, made it very transparent. And again, you were transferred out of the Court Secretary post, you were moved as Education Secretary, Government of India. What was the reason?
One of course, when I took over as Court Secretary, things were pretty bad. I mean, pretty bad is an understatement. It was terrible. In 2 years, we had transformed the whole sector. From acute shortage of coal to considering export of coal to Bangladesh. That was the transformation. There was not a single plant that was critical, so we had done the job. And I used to keep going to the PMO to tell them, sir, wind up this ministry. Because the Prime Minister used to say, oh, less government, more governance. So I said, wind up this ministry, not needed. So once or twice I went there. I think they got fed up with me. Or there must have been some other incident. And at that point in time, they were probably looking for the most illiterate, uneducated civil servant who made Education Secretary, Government of India. So they made me there. They found that in the standards route, I was made School Education Secretary.
Now, you are someone, generally, no one can say no to Prime Minister. You know, Prime Minister is Modi ji. And I heard that you even told no to him.
No,
in the first meeting.
No, I didn't say no to him. I mean, I would advise everyone never say no to anybody. Why say no when you can get away without saying no and not doing what the person wants? Why necessarily annoy somebody? So I never said no to the Prime Minister, but it implied a no. It's very important. So this was I had just taken over as School Secretary, and within 3-4 days there was a presentation to be made before the Prime Minister. And presentation was made by the Power and Energy Secretary. He presented 7 slides, and in all those 7 slides he said, sir, power problems because of coal, this problem, because of this problem, because of coal. All 7 problems were because of coal. So when he was through with this presentation, the Prime Minister turned towards me. Anil ji, did you see? The conversation was in Hindi, but for your convenience, I mean, the fun is gone. If you can understand Hindi, I would like to convert.
You can tell in Hindi, sir.
You are okay with Hindi? Wow, thanks to Bollywood. That's what they should have used for bringing Hindi here, unnecessarily maltreating it. So he said, Anil ji, आपने देखा? आप कोयले की समस्या का समाधान कर दीजिए, इस देश की आर्थिक स्थिति सुधर जाएगी. No, that's what he said. So I said, sir, I agree with you. I mean, I start by saying no. I said, I agree. But sir, you would also agree that the problem of power is not merely on account of coal. Coal is one of the many problems, and we will have to look at the whole issue comprehensively. Now, he picked up this phrase comprehensively and then turned towards Mr. Piyush Goyal, who was the Coal and Power Minister. He told him, Anil ji, सही कह रहे हैं. आपको इसको एनर्जी की समस्या को comprehensively देखना पड़ेगा. So it was not a no, but there was a disagreement. You know, ironically, my first meeting with the Prime Minister was a disagreement. My last meeting with the Prime Minister was also a disagreement. And in both these cases, they agreed. But I can still do.
Coming back to this political leadership, I heard that you were someone who was handpicked by Mr. Pinchdawan, one of the brightest ministers I feel, as a common. He handpicked you and made you as secretary, cabinet secretary, heading some big projects and all. Later, you are again, government changes, now NDA. How do you feel? Because political neutrality is some or trade or something which a civil servant should have. But however, what do you feel bad? We are now going to another government.
You know, I was a thorough professional. I did my job irrespective of which the political party was. I couldn't care less. I was secretary to Mr. Kalyan Singh from BJP, special secretary to Mayawati from BSP, in the cabinet secretariat in UPA government, as co-secretary in NDA government. I didn't really matter to me. A job gets given to you, you have to do that job as a professional. I never ever went to any politician in the 38 years for any personal favor whatsoever. That gave me a lot of strength. I did not expect anything from the politician. I did what I was asked to do. If I could, I put in my best effort. By God's grace, what we got recognized. And that is why probably different political parties. So I never cared about which political party. I, as a civil servant, and I would advise to everyone, is that you have to be a professional. You have to be efficient. You have to do the job that gets given to you, and you have to do what the politician tells you to do, so long as it is not illegal. If it is illegal, I mean. And I had the fortune, you know, except for the initial 12, 15 years of my career, later on, no one came up to me with anything that is even remotely be called illegal. Never. As simple as that.
No, why nothing, no illegal thing was told to you? Isn't, can you assume political leaders will never tell illegal thing?
No, politicians are very perceptive. They know which servant will do what. So if you have developed a reputation of not doing anything wrong, they won't tell you. They may not put you at a place where they want some wrong to be done. That's a different matter. But I never wanted any place to give me whatever you want. If you don't want to give me, I'll do something else. At least in the IAS, every job is as good as the other job. So I didn't get this. I don't know about other services. I didn't have much of an experience. But in the IAS, every job, I mean, I enjoyed every job. I was posted as member judicial board of review, which is considered to be a god for second place. I thoroughly enjoyed this assignment. I have written a full chapter on that. Very interesting. You know, I remember when I arrived at Prayagraj station, The vehicle had come to pick me up. So as we were driving from the station to the office, I mean, I'm not joking. I suddenly felt that there's no driver and the car was moving. So I thought I must have mistaken. Then again I saw that the driver is not visible in the car. It was an old ambassador, it was not those back seat, full seat. And the driver was short stature. What was happening was, because when it happened for the third time, I peeped ahead and saw that the dog, every time the driver had to change the gear rod had broken, so he had to bend down to change the gear. And that's what gave the impression that the vehicle is moving without the driver. It was as bad as that. And when I arrived at that office, a huge room, I entered that room and my orderly was there and this sound was coming, tuck, 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 tuck. So I asked the guy, where is this sound coming from? So he looked up. Instead of white, I saw were black. They were bats sitting there. And they were making that sound, tuck, 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 tuck. And my challenge was how to change this office. There's a chapter in my book. We changed it into the most sophisticated computerized office in 8 months. So when you get so-called not so good posting, make it good. That's the challenge. So I enjoyed those challenges. I loved them.
Politicians are bad, officers are good. Is it right? And tell some encounters you had in political life.
Honesty is a necessary condition for a successful civil servant, but not a sufficient condition. You have to be efficient. You have to deliver.
Have you ever fought with the politicians?
Many times.
Can you tell us?
Many times.